I think so much of what we try to create in a workplace experience to create variety and to really elevate people's day is what we call casual collisions, opportunities for people to just connect for that unexpected moment, because that's where innovation sparks and that's where creativity can happen and decisions can get made. And so thinking about as the washroom is like another place for that to happen, but also a place to avoid excluding people.
So a number of your clients at Gensler are corporate, and they have expectations that are very high. They want high-performing workplaces. What does that mean, and how does that translate into architecture and design?
Work is a really important part of people's lives. So many people spend a high percentage, more than 50% of their days and years. And so for that to be filled with purpose, the workplace has to support that.
When you think about all the different spaces within a workspace, the lobby, the office, the conference room, where does the washroom fit into that overall picture? Is it intentional, or is it still today considered a bit of an afterthought?
It absolutely, when I was a young designer, felt like an afterthought. It felt like it had the potential to be this back of house space. And under-recognized as a place that we all shared. But as we've evolved, I think as designers and wanting that experience that we're trying to create where people are feel fulfilled and purpose-driven at work, that continues into the restroom, because the restroom is also a really unique place where any employer, any company can show that they care. It's a place that can give care to their employees, because it's a place where there's privacy. It can also be a place of conviviality.
Are there any specifics or particularities about washroom designs that you might see today that you wouldn't have seen 10 or 15 years ago when you started in the washroom? And as you described it, it was much more of an afterthought.
When I first started as an architect, I often demolished restrooms that were maybe 10 or 15 years older than that had pink tiles on the wall, blue tiles on the wall for a gentleman's restroom. Or in restaurants, sometimes you would see a space for women to powder their nose and things like that. And those are all important experiential moments, but they were often missing the mark in terms of what it looks like and feels like to live in a modern world in the cities that we live in today. And so giving people that moment of respite, that moment of privacy, that moment, for some people, if your work day is intense, that's the place where you decompress for a second. And I don't think that the prior design world and eras considered the space that way.
So Jennifer, you and I go back quite a while. We worked on a project together called Privata, which is a European-style toilet cubicle made here in the United States. What sparked your interest in designing a cubicle system?
I was working as a young designer, and I was working on a workplace that was 12 floors in New York City, my first big project at Gensler. And I was given the responsibility from a design director and mentor that she couldn't do another terrible bathroom. And so I was assigned the washrooms. And there's a lot of canvas there, getting the opportunity to think about how a door sounds when it closes, how a piece of hardware feels in your hand, what it should feel like to touch the edge of something. All of those are just more ways to get into the design of the everyday. So for me, it was a canvas with new crayons.
It's all in the details.
It's all in the details. And you're right that I don't know that before that experience, I had realized as a designer how much of that experience was living in that product.
How did Privata become more of an everyday workplace expectation?
Well, I think once there was a product that didn't feel like it came at such a premium, that it was something that was made out of a material that was durable, but we could make it look elegant and give that experience, that elevated experience but without the additional cost or expense or schedule risk to a project. That was what really felt like we had found something that could deliver for everyone. It wasn't a product that seemed like it was so specific to higher end clients. It felt like anyone could specify it, and why wouldn't we want that?
So we spent a lot of time talking about the past and our collaboration together with Privata. Where do you see the future of washroom design heading?
I think we're gonna find that wellness and all these spaces of care, people are gonna need them more and more everywhere they go. And that we're going to have to keep thinking about that level of intention behind the design of everything. Having a place that everyone, and I mean everyone, because it's a lower D democracy space, right? It's for everyone. Well, you all have a unique restroom layout that you don't always see in a workplace. All the water closets and the core restrooms are separated, as you would expect, into their own rooms with stalls, etc. But then you have a conjoined washroom. And I always thought that that was curious, and what an interesting way to actually bring even more conviviality and more shared spaces and make it feel more like for everybody. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so where it came from was some years back, there was a meeting where a decision needed to be made but was left open. And a couple of the executives happened to bump into each other in the washroom, washing their hands. And during the course of their interaction, they felt they had resolved the question and made a decision. When a female executive found out about that decision, she recognized that because that collision had occurred in a segregated space, she realized, and we realized as a company, that we need to ensure that we've got fewer places of segregation and more opportunities for those serendipitous moments to occur, either where ideas may emerge or where decisions get made.
That's so great, because I think so much of what we try to create in a workplace experience to create variety and to really elevate people's day is what we call casual collisions. Opportunities for people to just connect for that unexpected moment, because that's where innovation sparks and that's where creativity can happen and decisions can get made. And so thinking about as the washroom is like another place for that to happen, but also a place to avoid excluding people.
I've got to ask, since you're the expert, if I were to educate myself in terms of the washroom, its history, or its future, are there any books that I ought to read?
Well, you and I share that we've a little bit become bathroom nerds over the last few years. And so I've always gotten very curious about why do we do things a certain way and how has the bathroom kind of evolved over time? So I actually do have a book that I've read. It's called The Bathroom: From Hygiene to Wellness. And I brought this for you because I thought you should have it.
Great.
Because thinking about not just the bathroom now, but thinking about how it's always been a part of cultural life. For the Romans, it was this convivial space that was the center of their culture. And over time, what's caused it to change and what are the products that have sort of innovated that change? That, for me, as an architect, connects what I really love about great cities down to the thing that you can touch with your hand. And so to me, and for the work that I do at Gensler, that's really what it's all about, is like spanning that gap, because that's where design lives.
I love it. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for continuing to inspire and challenge us as manufacturers to make the restroom a more welcoming and hygienic place for everyone.
Thank you for letting us push you and letting us use our design thinking and bring it down to that level of the product, and being willing to challenge yourselves to make things that meet us in the middle and elevate the design of the everyday.
Let's do it.